Greetings and salutations, folks. I hope everyone is doing well and welcome to today's upload. Before we jump on into it, a couple quick links. As many of you may know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Ned Only. These audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon. And folks, please leave a comment and share this video. Why? Well, because these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's upload, shall we? Alright everybody, a couple of days ago I narrated an encounter, or actually two encounters that a gentleman had. His name is Ken, and he had two encounters where he heard these creatures. Ken, how are you today?
Good, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. And just like we talked about before, the floor is yours, my friend. You share your encounter, and then we'll discuss a little further on from that, all right?
All right, sounds good. Well, these encounters happened in the mountains of Virginia back about 20 years ago. Well, maybe even longer than that. And I lived in a valley in the mountains where a lot of my neighbors were just kind of country people. Some of them were farmers, some of them just living out there. And several of them reported seeing these animals that they thought were black panthers. My not my best friend, but a good friend of mine, they homeschooled his family, lived on his farm, and his wife said she saw what looked like a black panther jumping over a fence, not the fence of their farm field. And there was another neighbor who he'd been out there since, his family goes way, way, way back, and he was, a classic kind of mountain kind of man. And he'd be like, these panthers are always making trouble. Sometimes I'll see it up in a tree, or sometimes, basically he would talk about it a lot, seeing this panther. And I believed at the time that this was all mountain lions, even though the DNR denies that there are mountain lions in Virginia or in the eastern Appalachians. And they do say that there's a panther in Florida, but they deny that there's any melanistic big cats that are north of Florida. And melanistic means black. It's basically black is not a natural, it's not a very natural color that you see in wild animals, because tan, in modeled tan kind of colors, is a much better camouflage. So another encounter, close encounter that I didn't actually see, but still kind of freaked me out. I was living on this property across a river, kind of separated from the rest of the valley. You had to walk over the river on a swinging bridge that was about 100 yards long. And they have a bunch of those down in Appalachia, where you have basically places that are hard to get to, and it was cheaper for the government just to put one of those little bridges up instead of actually building a road bridge. So if I wanted to get my truck to the property, I had to drive through the river, and it was about maybe 75 yards across. And the river was usually too high to do that, so I could only cross in the summertime when the water was down. The rest of the time, I'd end up parking at the foot of the swinging bridge, walk 100 yards across the bridge, and then walk about 150 yards from the bridge up to my house. So I guess I've been out there about 4 years. This happened in December of 2010, about a week before Christmas. I had a housemate and had a visitor staying with me, and one of them went out to get some firewood off the front porch because that's where I kept a big old stack of firewood, and I only had a wood stove to heat the house. He comes in and he says, there's a woman screaming out there. So put my boots on, grab all the weapons that were at hand, step outside and listen, and sure enough, it sounds like a woman down by the bridge is being murdered, just screaming bloody murder. And it definitely sounded just like a woman. So we all three went running down there. I took the lead. Get to the bridge, stop and listen again. And now it sounds like it's coming from the road opposite the bridge. Now keep in mind, it's dark already. This happened probably 8 or 9 o'clock at night when it gets dark, around 5 o'clock just before Christmas. So I run across the bridge and I run up to the road, and as I'm even running, I'm hearing it more, hearing these screams. And now I realize it's not actually on the road, it's up in the woods above the road. And at that point, I'm still running toward it, but I'm thinking, what in the world is a woman doing up there? Because I couldn't imagine anybody being up there in daytime, much less nighttime. So I ran on up into the woods, and my 2 friends were probably 50 yards behind me at this point. And I ran up to where I thought it was coming from, and I stopped. And then I heard a scream from the left and a scream from the right. And these were so close that now I could hear the snarl at the end of the scream. And I realized this is not a human being at all. I don't know what it was, but I turned around and ran back to the bridge, and we walked back to the house and locked the door good that night. So I don't know what it was, but at the time, I thought it might have been 2 mountain lions fighting, but I've just never heard of mountain lions making that particular sound. I've heard them on Grizzly Adams, and, you can listen to audio files of mountain lions, and I've not heard them make that sound. Then there was a similar case in Tennessee. A friend of mine, just maybe 3 months ago, he heard this out in the woods near the house where I live now, and he heard the screaming out there, and he went and grabbed his gun, and I said, don't go. It's not what you think it is. And he didn't. So anyway, that was that encounter. Years before that, this was back in 1998, I had bought a property in a different part of Virginia, and there was an old mill on the property and an old house on the property. By a mill, I mean, it was a barn, but it was a really well-made barn. Much better than a typical, I guess, barn made for hay. This thing was sturdy, and you could lock it up pretty good. It had 1 window and 1 door. And so anyway, I was going to fix the house up, but the house had all the windows busted out. So I basically used the barn as my quarters while I started working on the house. And I was living out there for a few months. And sometimes I would cook dinner on a frying pan on a little gas stove, and I would toss the bones out the window. And sometimes I would hear something coming at night, and it would chase away the cats. And it would eat the bones, and I could hear it just chewing them up, just like they were pretzels. So I didn't know what it was. Again, back then I didn't know about any of these paranormal things. I just thought it was a mountain lion. So one night, after about 2 weeks of that other stuff going on, I was sleeping on my cot, just in my boxer shorts. It's probably September, so it should be cool at night. And I'm awakened by a sound and a feeling. And as I wake up, I listen, and I hear the sound of footsteps on the roof. And I thought maybe at first it was the branch of the maple tree that touches the top. Sometimes when the wind blows, it'll make a sound. But it was still outside, and I could hear these footsteps creak, creak, creak. So I jumped up quietly, and I grabbed my Browning high power 9mm, just the old pistol I used to use long ago. And I just started walking quietly underneath it. And at this point, I'm thinking, what is it? And is it going to try to kill me? For some reason, I felt scared, even though I'm inside a pretty sturdy structure that it would take, an axe to get into. So as I followed it down toward the south end of the building, and I forgot to mention that the south end had an extension on it where the door was, like a little bump out. And that was where the roof was the least sturdy. So over most of the structure, you had a whole layer of oak boards and the metal roof on top. That thing probably could have supported 2,000 pounds or more. But then when you got down to the end, it was just metal over top of rafters that were spaced about 2 feet apart. So once it got on that extension, it made louder sounds because the metal was bending a little bit under it, and it jumped down to the ground. I heard it thump, or at least I assume that's what it was, unless there was two of them. And then I heard it back up on top again, like maybe it jumped back up there. And the peak of the roof was about 15 feet off the ground, and I knew that was higher than anything I knew could jump. Maybe a mountain lion could jump that high. So at that point, when he jumped back up there, I thought, okay, it wants to get me. So I just raised my hands over my head with the pistol, and I trained it on the spot I thought the sound was coming from. Footstep. And then I just emptied the magazine. I saved a couple. So I think out of a 12-round magazine, I had 2 left. But I put solid, 6 to 8, maybe 10 shots in there. And it immediately crashed, like it fell onto the roof, and bam. And then it was a sound like fingernails on chalkboard as it slid down the roof, but it apparently was using its fingernails to try to hang on. It went, and then thump when it hit the ground outside the door. So now this thing is outside my door. I just put a couple rounds into it. I was tempted to open that door and finish it. It was a solid oak door, so you couldn't see through it. I thought better of it. I was still feeling pretty scared, and I just decided, well, whatever it is, it'll keep till morning. I'd better not go out there until there's daylight. So I went back to bed, and when I got up in the morning and opened the door, there was nothing there. But the holes are still in the roof, and you drive by that place, you can still see the holes in that part of the roof of that little mill. So I guess those are my stories, and they're not
I got a couple
as most of the ones you have on. Yeah, go ahead.
Got a couple quick questions. Now, when you shot at the creature, and did it make any noise? Like, was there, other than the shriek of the nails as it slid down the roof, was there any like a growl or a whimper or anything other than that?
I didn't hear any growl that time.
Okay.
I heard the growl when it was coming, chasing off the cat. I would hear it growl, but it didn't growl when I shot it.
Okay.
So.
All right, and there was. I mean, I doubt you got up on the roof to see, but was there any blood or any kind of blood trail on the ground, or no, that you saw?
I didn't see any.
Okay.
Didn't see any, but it was really dry, and that soil would have soaked it up. But I can't even guarantee that I even hit it. Right. It could be I just startled it so bad it jumped and fell. But I think, I was aiming right for where its feet would be, and if their feet are as big as they say they are, then maybe I shot at the foot at least,
right.
Or it could have gone up and hit the body. I don't know.
When you sent me these encounters, I read the mill one first, I think, and I was like, wow, like the way you described the mill, while I was narrating it, I was picturing it in my head, and that must have been frightening. I mean, you were, young at the time, and by yourself, you hear something large, and then you hear it go towards where the section, the addition, where it doesn't have the fortified roof. In my head, I'd be thinking, this thing's going to fall through. That must have been a really terrifying event for you. I mean, Jesus. So,
my was definitely was sweating.
Yeah.
I didn't get the complete terror that a lot of people describe, and again, I can't even be sure what it was. Right. Except that, from what I've learned, I don't really think a mountain lion would act that way. It's just for it to be messing around where a house where it smells a person is inside. Mountain lions are usually extremely averse to people, unless they're in like California where they've gotten used to eating dogs and cats. Like sometimes you'll hear about it there where they get acclimatized. But in the mountains, there's no way a mountain lion is going to act that way unless it's sick or has rabies or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what it was.
Exactly.
Well, but I do. So my encounters are not as, I guess, not as overwhelming as some of the people.
Everybody's encounter. Actually, I truly, honestly, I don't hate when people say that, but I kind of, it really doesn't matter, like, the amount, like, okay, you can't compare encounters in my own thinking. I can't say, well, your encounter isn't as scary as this encounter or this and that, because we're experiencing something that as we grow up, we're told doesn't exist. We're told, like, we're safe, and there are no monsters. There's nothing that's going to come out and kill us and hunt us down. So to me, all encounters are educational. We learn something from all of them, whether it be one small thing or something large. So all encounters have some sort of pertinence to me, I believe, so I really appreciate you sharing your encounters with us today. I know that you kind of wanted to do a little something different, so I'm going to give the floor to you again and let you, because it was your idea, let you start it off, all right?
Right. Thank you. Well, I'm kind of interested in talking about what these things are and maybe some of the history behind them. And by this, by these things, I basically mean the Dogman, the Bigfoot, and then some of the other less common cryptids that people seem to encounter. I think that these shows, like yours, are actually super helpful for the public to kind of get a broad enough number of people telling their stories to kind of get an idea of what these things are and what their capabilities are. So, for example, some of the people call in and they just think it was an animal. They think it's just a big animal that is undescribed by science. But other people describe, well, their eyes are glowing. And then other people will say, this is much less common, that it spoke to them using some kind of telepathy or somehow projected a thought into their head. And then you had the fact that the way people describe them, and they seem to be what I would call a chimera, where they seem to have, like say for the Dogman, some parts of the country they call them wampus cats.
Yep.
They have the claws where they can run up a tree, and I think that kind of reminds me of the people in Virginia thinking they saw a Black Panther.
You're good.
People thought that seeing a Black Panther when maybe what they are seeing is a Dogman or a Sasquatch that has some feline DNA. Like these things are a mixture of, they've been some kind of genetic engineering experiment. Maybe done in ancient times or maybe done recently. You've got that other caller, William, who was claiming that the government was running a program where they're breeding these things, which is horrifying to me. So looking back into history, is there anything that we can explain from history where these things should exist, or at least they make sense within our worldview?
Well, and
I think there is.
Didn't Alexander the Great? He said that he came across like a army of dog-headed men, and Christopher Columbus, I think, too, stated that there was an island or something of dog-headed men.
How to get? Yes.
Yeah.
There are those two references to possible dogmen in the ancient past. Even going further back, there are two ancient references that I think might explain what these things are and where they come from. In Genesis 6, you have the discussion of the sons of God saw the daughters of men, and they came down and had children with them, and they were giants, and they were called Nephilim, which seems to mean, in Hebrew, the fallen ones. And then you have the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is set after the flood, and you have this guy who the epic claims that his father was a demon, and his mother was the goddess Ishtar, who I think was just a person. And he's depicted as being like 15 feet tall, and he's holding two full-grown African male lions under his arms that he killed. And having seen an African male lion up close, those things are about 6 or 7 feet long and 300 pounds. So this guy had to have been just monstrous if he's being depicted accurately. But in the Epic of Gilgamesh, we're told several interesting things about him. One is that at the beginning, he's behaving very badly in his city of Uruk that he rules. He's claiming prima nocta, which means first night. And if you've seen the film Braveheart, you know what I'm talking about. As king, he was claiming the right to the first night with every bride at her marriage in the city. And it even said more than that, not just that, but no nobleman's wife is safe, or even his child. So he's basically, as king, he's using his king as license to basically sexually assault anybody in the city that he wants. And then it says the gods decided we need to give him something constructive to do, so they make this wild man, they call him Enkidu, and they describe him as he's this huge man of the forest, but he's covered in hair. But he is kind of like a man, and they end up sending a prostitute out into the woods to seduce him. And after he's seduced by her, he tries to go back to his wild ways, but the animals reject him, so he ends up coming to the city, and he wrestles Gilgamesh and loses, but he and Gilgamesh instantly become friends, which is a very guy thing to do. We fight knowing that we're friends. But anyway, so these two go off on their adventures, and at one point they anger Gilgamesh's mother. She sends this thing called the Bull of Heaven after them, and they kill it and throw the pieces of it at her. So she's really, really angry then, and she goes to her father, and Anu, the god, and she says, if you don't give me the weapon I'm asking for, I'm going to send a famine that'll last 7 years, and I'm going to open the vaults of the dead and let the dead consume the living. So she's basically threatening a zombie apocalypse. And I just thought it was interesting that there in the Epic of Gilgamesh, you see 3 elements where he appears to be a Nephilim. We see what appears to be the first reference to a Sasquatch, or Sasquatch-type being. And we also see the first reference to zombies, all 3 in that one very, very ancient piece of literature. You still tracking with me?
Yeah. I was not really familiar with it. So I was literally, as you were talking about this, I was reading about it, and that's crazy. I'm literally gonna go and read this now, because, and the first thing that I stumbled on was the friend there, the wild man, and yeah, I mean, that a hairy huge creature that lives in the woods is, reference very similar to a Sasquatch. And then this is crazy. Wow. The Genesis thing that you pegged on too was the dogs of man. I mean, that's insane, because there's a bunch of other biblical references to the Dogman. I'm not really sure right offhand without looking them up, but
there are a few passages that use the word satyr, S-A-T-Y-R.
Yeah.
And some people, that could be a reference to one of these hybrid things.
Yeah.
So my theory on what this is, I come from a Christian worldview, and I think that the angels of heaven, called the host of heaven, and also called the sons of God. And it's interesting that the story of Genesis chapter 6 is actually a very common story in science fiction, that there are aliens, there's an alien invasion, and then not all of them, but in a lot of the alien invasion stories, they want our women and they want to hybridize with them. Like, I remember one called V back in the 80s. That was exactly the story. And I think that this is a true story. And so I think basically the Dogman, Sasquatch, demons, and people's encounters with alien abductions, I think that's all related phenomena. Because some of the Dogman encounters, one guy out in Colorado was saying that while the Dogman was outside his house, there's a poltergeist inside the house rattling the cupboards and stuff. So you see this kind of a set of paranormal traits that kind of go with these creatures. So my hypothesis on it is that these angelic beings, or aliens, if you want to call them aliens, that they desired the image of God, and apparently man is made in the image of God in a way that other things aren't. So we're like higher than the animals, but we're lower than the angels, is how it's described in one place. And maybe it's sexuality that's part of our nature. That's part of it. The ability to beget sons and daughters. So I think that these things basically deliberately were hybridizing to try to create their own race. And maybe they were using genetic engineering. I'm not saying that they have the natural capacity to do it. Because, like, to blend together DNA from a bunch of different animals to get something like is called a Dogman that has, some parts are like a man, some parts are like a dog, some parts are like a raccoon, and then it has some behaviors like a cat. Sounds like someone has blended different kinds of DNA together, maybe. So I suspect that that's what's going on, and that they are hiding in the cracks and crevices, with the ghouls and the goblins, so to speak. but I think that also kind of explains why they are such stalkers. Because over and over and over again, you hear these stories, whether it's a Sasquatch or a Dogman, they love peeking in windows at night. And they love staring at people. And they also, a lot of them seem to get a real thrill out of scaring people to death, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing about you that it smiles at you. It doesn't kill you, but it smiles at you. Or they chase people. They'll chase people all the way home when they could easily. If they're reported to be able to run up as the highest I've heard is 70, but easily 40 or 50 miles an hour. So there's no way a person could outrun one. So the fact that they chase people but don't kill them, thrill out of it, I guess. What do you think?
You know, that, to be honest, I for a while, I had a lot of different views on what these things could be. For a while, I thought that they were possibly interdimensional travelers, like the Sasquatch. I thought, these are just thoughts, you know, that I kick around in my head. Like, because people have claimed to see a Sasquatch and then it goes behind a tree and it's gone. I was like, well, maybe there was some sort of portal there. Then I started to kind of move away from that. The more encounters I heard, I was like, well, like you explained, they have the ability to climb trees, they can jump, they can run fast. I was thinking, well, maybe they are some sort of prehistoric animal that survived the extinction, and maybe they were just some sort of large prehistoric raccoon or honey badger type animal. But then the more and more I started getting into it, I started listening to opinions like yours, and there was a subscriber that had said that he believes they are demons. And I said, well, just, where is your proof on that claim? And he said, very similar to what you just said. And then he used the reference of their eyes being able to glow without any light. Sometimes they are seen, there was like an encounter where there was one hovering. So right now, I honestly don't have an opinion. I'd love to, and I think that's what keeps me going, is because there are so many different aspects and so many different, and then some have the ability to speak telepathically or verbally. I mean, that shows possibly demonic attributes.
Well, it shows sentience. Yeah. They're intelligent. They're not animals.
Right.
Well, let me throw a few pieces out for you. A couple more pieces. According to the Jews, I think this came from the Book of Jubilees, but it might also be in the Book of Enoch. They say that after the flood killed most of these things, that their spirits didn't go wherever human spirits go, but then they would haunt the earth as demons. So basically, the Jewish belief is that demons are the souls of these things after their bodies have been killed. And so it's kind of like, yeah, they are demons, but they're not. There was an ancient belief that, interestingly, seems to have some modern basis in science, that the ancients believed that a child got 2/3 of its body from its mother and 1/3 from its father. but that it got all of its spirit from the Father. And I think that belief was called Traducianism. Even in the Christian church, that was partly believed for a long time, and some people still do. But the interesting thing that we know from genetics is that you do get half of your chromosomal DNA from your mother, but you get all of your mitochondrial DNA from your mom. So it actually kind of is true that you get 2/3 of your DNA from your mom, and you get 1/3 from your dad. Now, if the spiritual aspect is true, then if these angelic beings or aliens figured out a way to sire a offspring that has a human body, but the spirit would actually be angelic, or have basically it's an angelic spirit, which might explain why when they get killed, they continue to haunt. They continue to be able to go around and possess animals or people in some cases. That's just data. I can't say, how do you prove any of this stuff? You can't really.
Right. Well,
all you can kind of do is just, listen.
Yeah, there's a Native American lore that a woman, she was a daughter of the chief, and I don't know what tribe or culture this was from, I forget, but she fell in love with a beautiful white wolf. They don't really depict whether it was physical or spiritual, but she became pregnant and had these half child, like half human, half wolf children. The chief then slayed the white wolf and sent his daughter in these freaks, is pretty much what he was calling them, out onto some island, and eventually they came back and slaughtered the small tribe. I really forget what culture of Native American that was, but I think it was more cold. It was in the cold region, so it could have been Alaska, Canada. But it was very interesting to me, because I was like, wow, well, there's a lot of spirituality right there. And, there's a lot of different pockets of where these things came from, what they are. And I think, excuse me, just like you said, you got to keep listening. And because until we know exactly what they are, it's a belief. That's pretty much what cryptozoology is. It's a belief in something that hasn't been proven yet. And like I said before, that's what keeps me coming back. I want to know the answer, and I don't. And unfortunately, it's, we might not ever get the answer, or when we do get the answer, it's gonna suck, because then what are we gonna, then what are we gonna try to solve, So I really like the.
Have you ever heard of transhumanism?
No.
So this is a cutting edge, trendy thing with people like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, people like that.
I love
billionaires,
Elon.
basically.
I love Elon. He's great.
Yeah. But a lot of them believe passionately that we are going to reach this thing they call the singularity, where artificial intelligence becomes more powerful than a human brain. And then we can start upgrading ourselves. We can basically start becoming transhumans, where we can edit our DNA.
Oh, yeah.
We can add computer powers to our brains. We could maybe add prosthetics, like bionics. But I think ultimately that transhumanism is kind of leads to these things. I mean, if there was somebody in the past who gained the knowledge of genetic engineering long before we did, some of these things look like, they were just built as killing machines. If you wanted to have your kind breed out the others and defeat the others, who could possibly defeat a Dogman?
Right.
Well, it turns out, a lot of men with guns can, according to William. Even one man with a gun can. But if there were as many of them as there were of us, we'd be in some serious trouble.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I wonder if... So I just think about that they are... I don't think that they're evolved. I think that they're basically created by design, that they are not natural, at least part of what's supposed to be here, and that they are basically effectively aliens in our environment, which is why they act so creepy.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's about all I really had to say about it.
The one thing that
Did you have...
Sorry, real quick. The one thing that I really like that you just said, Ken, was that they were created by design, and whoever created them to be the apex predator that they are, and scary as they are. It's that one little statement fits them perfectly.
But I don't think they're our friends. I've heard a few people say, well, they're protecting us from something else. I've heard actually William said that, and I heard two other people say that. One is actually, they told him that. One was a guy, you remember the guy
Zach.
at Big Mo who came on your show? He said
Zach.
The government told him that.
Yep, Zach thinks that they are here that he has one that's protecting him from something else. I think they're, I don't know, I agree. I don't think they're our friends. I think they can manipulate us to have us think, and what William said was never trust them, that they'll act a certain way, like let's say someone's feeding them and then they start, just coming around more and not doing anything as scary as before, but then they'll snap at an instant. I think they're very manipulative creatures. So
that reminds me of animism. I spent some years in Africa, and a lot of it's not just there. In any continent, you can find native peoples who still believe in animism, and they tend to believe that there are spirits, in the things around them, but especially spirits of ancestors. They are afraid of the spirits, and so they try to appease them. Like in South America, they'll leave them tobacco. Like you'll see, they'll have a shrine and then burn some tobacco. But they're basically doing things to try to appease spiritual beings, not to hurt them. And you could kind of see the same behavior pattern with the way some of these Dogman and Sasquatch act. Right. It's like, we'll leave you alone if you feed us, or if you give us a benefit. But they can go back on the deal whenever they want.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes, there are cases of Bigfoot saving people's life. Have you ever heard of a Dogman saving somebody's life?
No. I've heard, I got a encounter where a supposed skinwalker saved somebody's life that I've sat on for about 2 years, just pondering the possibility of something black magic trying to save somebody, but I don't think I've ever heard of a Dogman saving somebody's life. No. So.
Curious.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm almost out of time. It was really great having you on, Ken. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your encounters with us, and then also...
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I'm honored to be able to share some thoughts and experiences, and I hope that you keep doing what you're doing and that you are prospering. I hope that this works out for you as a way of supporting yourself, and I think that you hope that you can use your audio narration talents and maybe even to do bigger things, and that'll reward you well.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Well, it was great having you on the show, and I look forward to talking to you in the future. And there you have it, folks. I hope you all enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is your support, after all, that helps this channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.